Chief, your meaning is... The demonic emperor old man turned to the origin immortal chief and frowned. He could hear from her tone that she was certain that no one else could obtain the origin immortal art. Just watch and you'll understand. The origin immortal chief did not explain in detail, but her expression was assured and unpanicked. Young patriarch, please be at ease. No one except patriarch can enter the origin immortal palace. There was a profound light in her eyes and immense confidence in her voice. Wang Chong, the demonic emperor old man, and the Wuxiang village chief were all suspicious, but in the distance, everything was being revealed. The second wave of martial artists reached the origin immortal palace, but surprisingly, they suddenly stopped several feet from the palace. Their eyes went slack as they motionlessly stood there. What's going on here? Everyone immediately sensed that something wasn't right, that something abnormal was going on. The origin immortal art made all the martial artists of the world go crazy. There was no reason for someone to stop before even reaching the golden barrier. Take some people to go and look. At the other end of the stone bridge, the Black Een ancestor suddenly waved his hand. Several Five Ancestor Alliance experts immediately began to make their way over. The Righteous Alliance also sent out a few disciples. As these experts crossed the stone bridge and the chains, they instantly became the center of attention. A few moments later, these Righteous Alliance and Five Ancestor Alliance disciples had reached the barrier. They chose to approach from different directions, and they were soon 3 feet from the barrier, 2 feet, 1 foot. Bzzzzz. With no warning, the Five Ancestor Alliance experts and Righteous Alliance disciples froze. Their eyes became unfocused and dazed. What is this? The Black Een ancestor once more trembled, a look of shock on his face. Once was a coincidence, or perhaps because those unaffiliated martial artists had been lacking in strength. But even the Five Ancestor Alliance and Righteous Alliance experts had suffered the same fate, meaning that this was clearly not something that could be explained by a lack of strength. At the same time, the one who had commanded the Righteous Alliance disciples to go over, Vice Lord Xieguangting, couldn't help but crease his brow. Chief, what's going on here? Wang Chong suddenly asked. Humph, they've regarded the origin immortal lineage too simply. The origin immortal lord left behind the origin immortal palace within the heart of this cave more than 1,000 years ago. We origin immortal villagers and the 6 generations of disciples have devoted our all to protecting this palace. And those men in black expended such great effort also to reach this palace. How could such a place be so easily entered by just sending a few martial artists? The origin immortal chief coldly said, caring little about those avaricious righteous and evil path martial artists. In short, no one except the young patriarch can enter the origin immortal palace. Wang Chong said nothing, a pensive look on his face. Meanwhile, in the distance there was a shift in the situation. Some of the stronger martial artists, driven by their obsession, had managed to break free of their daze. Get out of my way. The origin immortal art is mine. I will be the world's #1. No one can stop me. These experts began to summon up all their stellar energy, which took the form of energy palms, energy fists, saber chi, and sword chi, all of it striking the barrier around the origin immortal palace. Boom boom boom. Countless attacks exploded on the barrier. But a moment later, there were panicked screams as an immense golden torrent erupted from the barrier. This golden torrent ignored those dazed martial artists, and in a flash of light, it slammed into those martial artists who had attacked the barrier, sending them flying. And behind them was the bottomless abyss. Aya! Screams resounded through the abyss as those martial artists, with no control over their bodies, plummeted downward. They tried to struggle, but their efforts were pointless. A few moments later, the martial artists had vanished into the fog, but their distant screams could still faintly be heard. As these martial artists fell, a beam of black and evil energy came out of the distance and collided with thunderous force against the golden barrier. Bang! The evil energy gave off a metallic clatter as it collided against the barrier, which slightly trembled. But a moment later, mysterious and ancient inscriptions flashed on its surface. Another immense power reflected that beam of evil energy, which returned even faster than it had come. Ah! There was a cry of alarm as a black figure on the other side of the bridge hastily dodged to the side, just barely managing to avoid this terrifying strike. 20 to 30 meters behind him, the evil energy blasted into the rock wall. Boom! Chunks of stone varying in size came crashing down. This mighty force caused even the ground beneath them to quake and groan. Bastard! The Black Een ancestor clenched his fists as he watched a large chunk of stone fall from above. His face ashen and twisted into a nasty scowl. He had just tried to see how strong the barrier was, seeing as those people up close couldn't break through it. He had not expected to almost be struck by his own attack. If he hadn't reacted quickly, he would have been heavily wounded by his own attack. Old 5. There's something weird about this Origin Immortal Palace. A mental wave resounded through the Black Een ancestor's mind. The Bone Devil ancestor had chosen this moment to make his opinion known, and he was looking at the dazzling Origin Immortal Palace in great apprehension. The others were also rather frightened. The Black Een ancestor might not have been the strongest in the 5 Ancestor Alliance, but he was definitely one of its best experts, only a tad weaker than the Bone Devil ancestor and the others. The Black Een ancestor's full-strength strike had been blocked and then reflected by the Origin Immortal Palace with even greater force than before. Their minds shivered at such a powerful defense. This alone made the Origin Immortal Palace an impregnable fortress that would make any martial artist hesitate. For at least 90% of martial artists, using force to break through the barrier was now implausible. The seal around this Origin Immortal Palace is too powerful. If we try to force our way through, not only might we not succeed, we might just end up heavily injuring ourselves. Another mental wave was sent to the minds of the other two as the Myriad Ghost ancestor commented. Since that's the case, why don't we question some people? This will also save us time and energy. The Myriad Ghost ancestor turned a dark look at the Origin Immortal Chief standing behind Wang Chong. The Black Een ancestor and the Bone Devil ancestor immediately turned their heads as well, and their energies began to seethe. Strictly speaking, it had been this female chief of the Origin Immortal villagers who had unlocked this Origin Immortal Palace. If she knew how to summon the Origin Immortal Palace from its position high above, she had to know a way to get through the bizarre golden barrier. Humph! The Origin Immortal Chief coldly snorted as the Myriad Ghost ancestor looked over, instantly knowing what the 5 Ancestor Alliance was thinking. Do you really think that we Origin Immortal villagers have become so weak that we can be bullied? Buzz! The Origin Immortal Chief shot them a cold glare and then sharply whistled. Kiki! A few moments later, a white thread shot out of the passage at the wall next to the Origin Immortal Chief. Pa! Another white spider thread was fired, and a few moments later, a massive green creature covered in fur began to travel along the threads with frightening speed. Buzz! A few moments later, the massive creature had noiselessly appeared behind the Origin Immortal Chief, its eyes like bright stars in the darkness of the passage. It's the Dark Shadow Spider. The crowd instantly recognized this creature, and those who had experienced its might trembled and unconsciously backed away. The threads of a Dark Shadow Spider were incredibly sharp and so tough that not even sabers or swords could damage them. The men in black had been able to use tyrannical flames to burn away the white threads, but none of the martial artists here could use this strange art. The Myriad Ghost ancestor turned grave and cautious upon seeing the Dark Shadow Spider. This woman, the Black Een ancestor, inwardly fumed. He was forced to admit that even though the Origin Immortal villagers had suffered severe losses against the men in black, they could not be easily disposed of. Their mastery of the traps in this place and their control of various monsters meant that the 5 Ancestor Alliance would have to think twice before doing anything to them. Xie Guangting furrowed his brow at this sight. It was clear that he had had a similar idea. Forget it. Just let him go. Xie Guangting heard a familiar voice at his ear, and he turned to look in surprise at the friend he had fought alongside for 10-some years. Have you not seen it yet? No one except that Wang Chong is able to enter the Origin Immortal Palace. Everything here was actually designed for his sake. Song Yuanyi stared ahead as he spoke. Xie Guangting frowned, a contemplative look on his face. But a moment later, his eyes passed over the Origin Immortal sword in Wang Chong's hand and the Origin Immortal chief standing behind Wang Chong, and he immediately understood. Song Yuanyi placed his hands behind his back and coldly said, "If not for him, none of us would have been able to defeat those men in black. Treat this as returning the favor, and besides, even if we wanted to try and take it, we might not be any match." Neither Wang Chong nor the demonic emperor old man was an ordinary martial artist, and though Wang Chong seemed to have expended a great deal of strength, if he still had even half his strength, no one here would be a match for him. If they truly began to fight, the righteous alliance might only end up getting wounds for its trouble. Bastard! What's going on here? Evil is at work here. The Origin Immortal Palace is right here, but no one can get in. The crowd was in an uproar. Even though both the righteous and evil path martial artists were applying all their strength, they could not get into the Origin Immortal Palace. "Master, go!" the Origin Immortal Chief suddenly said. "Our Origin Immortal lineage has orally passed down that only the holder of the Origin Immortal Sword can enter the palace. In there, the young patriarch will obtain the true inheritance of the Origin Immortal lineage." The Origin Immortal Chief solemnly looked at Wang Chong. True inheritance? Wang Chong's eyebrows rose upon hearing these words, and there was a questioning look in his eyes. "I also do not know. We Origin Immortal villagers have existed precisely for this moment," the Origin Immortal Chief sternly said, her eyes once more looking at the Origin Immortal Sword. Even though she had personally seen Wang Chong use this sword to defeat the Tiger Immortal, whenever she saw the sword and Wang Chong holding it, she felt like she was in a dream. "I truly didn't think that we would actually reach this moment. Perhaps the fate of all the people of our Origin Immortal lineage can be altered now that he has appeared," the Origin Immortal Chief muttered to herself. Even though she was trying her best to restrain herself, she couldn't stop her fingers from trembling. Only those of her lineage could understand what they had gone through, protecting this sword for generation after generation, remaining far away from the rest of the world. Wang Chong seemed to read something from the Origin Immortal Chief's tone, and countless thoughts flitted through his mind. But he soon managed to compose himself. Wang Chong gripped the Origin Immortal Sword and strode forward, his movement immediately drawing everyone's attention. The Black Yin ancestor, Song Yuanyi, and the other martial artists all turned to look. "This kid?" The Black Yin ancestor couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Though he maintained a fearless expression, deep within his eyes, one could detect a different emotion. Wang Chong had reached a terrifying level of strength, and even the Black Yin ancestor only dared to verbally oppose him. If it actually came to a fight, the Black Yin ancestor didn't have the guts. All was silent as Wang Chong slowly strode forward. The martial artists in his path all yielded the way. A few moments later, Wang Chong had crossed the stone bridge and the two chains to reach the Origin Immortal Palace. 3 feet in front of him was the Origin Immortal Palace that all martial artists yearned for. Countless mysterious words and symbols swam within the golden barrier of light. All of this happened in complete silence, but Wang Chong could keenly sense the boundless fury concealed beneath the calm, an immense sealing energy. This was clearly a powerful energy that had been lost to the river of time. After glancing at the barrier for a few moments, Wang Chong looked beyond. The vast and majestic Origin Immortal Palace did not seem like a building of the mortal world, but one from the heavens. It was difficult to imagine that such a vast and grandiose structure from the spring and autumn era more than 1,000 years ago had been able to be perfectly preserved up until the present age. The fact that this Origin Immortal Palace had remained suspended above the abyss for 1,000 years made it only more mysterious. Truly incredible. Wang Chong suddenly sighed. The long river of history had engulfed countless civilizations, snuffing out their glories and radiance. If he weren't seeing it with his own eyes, he would have never believed that a thing like this would be hidden 16,000 meters beneath the earth. I wonder what sort of secret could be hiding within. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. Clang. As he was thinking, he heard a metallic ring. Lowering his head, he saw that the Origin Immortal Sword was softly shaking, as if excited to sense a familiar energy. After a momentary daze, Wang Chong seemed to understand what was going on. Tap. Holding the Origin Immortal Sword, he pressed forward. Buzz. Countless ripples appeared in the air, and as countless envious and admiring eyes watched, Wang Chong's figure easily passed through the golden barrier. The barrier rippled like water, washing over Wang Chong's body and absorbing it. What? How? He actually got in. The martial artists were slack-jawed and wide-eyed. The impregnable barrier to them had seemingly not even existed to Wang Chong. It's over. The world's #1 art is going to be his. Some of the more vicious martial artists could not hide their envy. Stand aside. Someone viciously roared, and then, bzzz. A figure seething with evil energy slammed into the part of the barrier that Wang Chong had just entered through. Bang! With a massive explosion and a mighty shockwave, that figure was sent flying back more than 100 feet, leaving faster than they had come. Ancestor! Not good. Hurry and help him. The 5 Ancestor Alliance disciples were thrown into disarray, and they hastily rushed forward. Only after expending great effort did they manage to pull back the Black Een Ancestor before he fell into the abyss. Bastard! What's going on here? The Black Een Ancestor cursed, appearing much worse for wear. He had never in his life been so hard-pressed. He had tried to get into the Origin Immortal Palace from the same place, but he had been blocked and almost pushed into the abyss. This was simply absurd. Wang Chong had no idea what was going on behind him or what sort of disturbance his actions had created. His mind was completely focused on the scene before him. What a strange sensation! Wang Chong muttered to himself as he looked around. This golden light was extremely viscous, flowing through his fingers like liquid. Wang Chong had thought that he could enter the palace once he had gotten through the golden barrier, but this was not the case at all. Wang Chong also felt an indescribable strangeness. The golden barrier had seemed very thin, but no matter how thick it was, he should have been able to get into the palace after getting through the barrier. Yet not only had Wang Chong failed to get inside the palace, he couldn't even see it anymore. All he saw was complete chaos. Hiss! Wang Chong breathed in, focused his mind, and walked forward. The Origin Immortal Treasury was fraught with danger, and he had not been able to obtain any useful information from the Origin Immortal Chief. Until he knew what was going on, he did not dare to be careless. Wang Chong continued to make his way through the golden light, and after some time, in a flash of light, the way became open and clear. But when Wang Chong saw what was going on, he was struck dumb. How could this be? Wang Chong muttered in disbelief. In front of him was not the grandiose Origin Immortal Palace he had imagined, but a vast world of white. Surging white fog engulfed the world, packing every inch of space. Lowering his head, he saw white stones under his feet, but farther on was apparently yet another bottomless abyss. What's going on here? Wang Chong inwardly muttered, unable to get a single word out of his mouth. He had never imagined that entering the golden barrier wouldn't take him to the Origin Immortal Palace but another dimension entirely. The world before him was nigh infinite and brimming with mystery. Wang Chong almost instinctively spread out his psychic energy, but he was not able to notice anything strange. Turning around, he saw that the golden light had vanished, leaving only white fog. Wang Chong deeply furrowed his brow. All of this was completely different from what he had expected. Bzzz. A slight heat came from his palm as the Origin Immortal Sword began to tremble once more. It seems like this should be the place, Wang Chong said to himself. He was here now, and since he had received confirmation that this was the place, there was no point in panicking. Whoosh! He heard the swaying of the chains, ringing loudly in an otherwise silent world. Wang Chong immediately turned to the source of the noise and saw 2 blurry objects swinging in the fog, appearing only for a moment before once more being engulfed. Chains! Wang Chong immediately waved a hand, sending stellar energy howling forward in a fierce gale to blow away the fog. Not far from him, Wang Chong saw 2 chains as thick as arms hanging down, extending high up into the air. A rush of air swept past, causing the 2 chains to loudly jangle. Wang Chong thought for a few moments, and then he flew upward, drifting toward the chains like a leaf on the wind. So cold! It's meteoric metal. The moment his feet touched the chains, he recognized that they were made of meteoric metal. But unlike the meteoric metal he had collected, the chains were made of a metal that was even older and much colder. Wang Chong circulated his stellar energy, causing his feet to exert a pull on the chains, allowing him to swiftly travel upward along them. 100 feet, 1,000 feet, 10,000 feet. Wang Chong moved with incredible speed along the chains, getting higher and higher above the ground. It wasn't long before he couldn't recognize anything around him, and only the two cold chains remained to lead the way. Wang Chong had no idea where this was or where the two chains led. Everything was clouded in mystery. Wang Chong continued to fly upward along the chains, and 15 minutes became 30 minutes became 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. Wang Chong's stellar energy was constantly being worn away, but the chains remained endless. Gradually, Wang Chong began to sense that something was wrong. At my current strength, I don't even need 2 hours to travel 10,000 meters, but 6 to 8 hours have gone by now. How could there be a place so big in this underground world? Wang Chong speculated. But at this moment, there was no going back, only going forward. Swish! He suddenly heard a sound, upon which Wang Chong felt a strange sensation. He stopped and turned in the direction of the sound, and what he saw was another swaying chain spanning the nearby space. This chain had come from an entirely different direction, but it seemed to be traveling in the same direction as Wang Chong's chains. Wait! What's that? Wang Chong scanned the chain and immediately noticed something strange. Waving his sleeve, he sent a wave of energy sweeping across, driving away the fog. He was soon able to make out the object on that other chain. A white skeleton was hanging on it, swaying back and forth with the chain. The sight of this skeleton was incredibly confusing to Wang Chong. He had been the only one person to pass through the golden barrier and reach this place. There should have been no one except him here. The third chain's appearance was already very strange, and the skeleton hanging on it pushed the strangeness to maximum levels. What's going on here? Has someone been here before? Or are there other passages to this place? Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil. He saw more and more chains as he got higher and higher, and he also saw more and more white skeletons scattered across them. All of this was incredibly bizarre and confusing. As time passed, Wang Chong could no longer recall how much time he had spent in this place or how much distance he had traveled. He only knew that the chains had gone from 2 or 3 to 7 or 8, then 10 some chains and then dozens. Like the threads of a spider web, they all converged on a single location. Finally, after traveling along the chains for what seemed like an eternity, he saw a door of light at the nexus of the chains, exuding a dim glow as if it was waiting for something. Buzz! At this moment, the long silent origin immortal sword suddenly began to buzz and tremble. The heat coming from the sword immediately invigorated Wang Chong and brought him back to his senses. His body shot into the door of light like an arrow loosed from a bow. Endless bright light welcomed him, more dazzling than the sun, and he couldn't even open his eyes. Finally, the light began to dim, allowing Wang Chong to slowly open his eyes. The first thing he sensed was sturdy ground beneath his feet, and when he fully opened his eyes, he saw that the vast white dimension had vanished. As he saw what was behind the door of light, his young and determined face was stricken with shock. Wang Chong thought that yet another strange world would be hidden behind the door of light, but he saw a resplendent hall illuminated by soft and gentle light. The hall was decorated in an ancient style, with carved beams and painted rafters. Banners hung from the side walls and drooped to the floor, and the walls themselves were intricately carved with images of birds, insects, flowers, fish, and some ancient beasts. All of it combined to create an aura of tranquility. This is... Wang Chong's eyes were open in disbelief. Although he had never seen this place before, he did not feel it to be strange. This was inside the Origin Immortal Palace. Wang Chong had never imagined that after wasting so much time making his way through that white dimension and the door of light, he had only just now managed to get inside the Origin Immortal Palace. Countless thoughts passed through his mind, all of them coalescing into a single saying, "A short distance away yet poles apart." From the outside, the distance between the Golden Barrier and the Origin Immortal Palace was just a few dozen feet, but for Wang Chong, this distance had been an entire dimension. An indescribable respect appeared in Wang Chong's mind. All of this had gone beyond the scope of martial arts and involved a level of power that martial artists could neither imagine nor reach. Wang Chong quickly calmed down and focused. Several feet away stood two bronze incense burners, standing to the left and right. The incense burners were cast in the form of cranes standing on one leg, thin streams of smoke rising from their beaks and releasing a fragrance into the air. Behind the cranes was an ancient round altar, and on the altar was the origin immortal symbol. An old prayer mat had been placed at the very center of the altar, and a thin old man wearing a crane feather cloak of the spring and autumn era was seated upon it. Numerous white hairpins had been thrust into his hair, and he was sitting motionless in a meditative position. His head was slightly bowed and his body exuded an aura of decay. From the exposed ashen-white skin, it was apparent that he had been dead for a very long time. The entire hall was silent. This should be the origin immortal lord. Wang Chong gazed pensively at the origin immortal symbol on the elder's clothes. Although he had been dead for a very long time, the origin immortal lord still exuded a transcendent aura. When he was still alive, he had undoubtedly been a dignified expert of celestial bearing. After a few moments of thought, Wang Chong walked up, kneeled in front of the elder, and bowed. Junior Wang Chong pays respects to Senior Origin Immortal Lord. Please forgive me for the offense of intruding upon your palace. Wang Chong knocked his head against the floor. As a guest who had entered the master's room, he needed to show some courtesy. This had always been Wang Chong's style. As he raised his head, he suddenly felt a strange feeling. Behind and above the origin immortal lord, one of the carved butterflies on the wall had suddenly begun to move. Its trembling body twinkled with blue light that got brighter and brighter. A moment later, it broke free of the wall. Wang Chong was struck dumb by this wondrous sight. The butterfly tested its wings and then took flight, rising into the air and then descending onto the origin immortal lord's forehead. The butterfly slowly flapped its wings, upon which the decaying and lifeless shell of the origin immortal lord's body began to undergo an inconceivable transformation. Wang Chong could sense a faint vitality suddenly appearing deep within the origin immortal lord's body. It was barely there at the start, a flickering flame, but a moment later, it had exploded into a storm. The deathly white hue of the origin immortal lord's skin rapidly turned ruddy as its original color was restored. The dry wrinkles slowly stretched as they were filled in. Wang Chong suddenly understood something, and he stared at the origin immortal lord in complete stupefaction. How is this possible? If not for the fact that it was happening right now, Wang Chong would have never dared to believe that such a thing was possible. As if in response to his speculations, the origin immortal lord's body faintly trembled, a minor movement that set off an earthquake in Wang Chong's mind. You're finally here. A long sigh echoed in Wang Chong's mind, and as this voice spoke, Wang Chong saw the origin immortal lord's eyelids tremble and rise. A dazzling light appeared in the eyes, and for a moment, Wang Chong felt like he was looking at a vast starry sky, not a pair of eyes. Wang Chong's body shuddered in shock. The sight of the origin immortal lord, now much younger and brimming with vitality, had delivered an unprecedented blow to Wang Chong's mind. He couldn't help but feel that all of this was not real. The origin immortal lord was still alive. Wang Chong had never imagined that this creator of the origin immortal lineage and a mythical existence of the Central Plains who had lived more than 1,000 years ago was still alive, and that he was right in front of him and looking at him. Wang Chong felt like he was dreaming. I have waited for you for a long time, inheritor of destiny. The origin immortal lord's voice resounded in Wang Chong's mind, surprisingly soft and genial. Those starry eyes also began to soften, exuding a sense of affection and intimacy that engendered no resentment. Wang Chong said nothing. While his expression remained calm, his mind was tossing and turning. Before this, the origin immortal lord had just been a mythical figure from more than 1,000 years ago. Wang Chong did not know him and was sure that he had never met him before. He had never imagined that this adventure would turn out like this. The origin immortal lord had only spoken 2 sentences, but Wang Chong felt like his presence here had been long foreseen. "You know me?" Wang Chong muttered in a daze. "Heh!" The Origin Immortal Lord shook his head. "I am just waiting for someone who, after 1,000 years, will take this sword and appear before me. You are the first person to appear here, so you are naturally the one that I was waiting for." The Origin Immortal Lord turned his warm eyes to the Origin Immortal Sword. Wang Chong's face froze. Destiny contained countless variables, but the Origin Immortal Lord was apparently certain that Wang Chong was the person he had been waiting for. "Senior says that I'm the inheritor of destiny, but what does that mean?" Wang Chong suddenly said, not wasting much time worrying about whether or not he was actually the person the Origin Immortal Lord was waiting for. He had far too many questions, so even if he wasn't the person the Origin Immortal Lord was waiting for, he would still use this chance to ask a few questions. "Heh! This question is something that only you can answer." The Origin Immortal Lord looked at the youth and chuckled. "Junior is foolish. Please, Senior, instruct me." Wang Chong immediately bowed and asked for guidance. "Every sip and bite is preordained by destiny. Fortuitous beginnings and messy ends all have their reasons. If you still do not know, then it is naturally not the time yet. When the time comes, you will naturally understand," the Origin Immortal Lord calmly said, making no attempt to explain. Wang Chong decided to ask the simplest question of all. "Just where is this?" "The Origin Immortal Palace." The Origin Immortal Lord smiled. Wang Chong was somewhat taken aback to have his conjecture verified. After traversing through that white world, he truly had entered the Origin Immortal Palace. Outside, this junior encountered the first-generation successor and then the female chief of the Origin Immortal Villagers, and after that, I met Senior. Both Senior and the first-generation successor said that they were waiting for me, but this junior is merely a general in the court of the Great Tang, not even a member of the martial arts world. What is so special about this junior that makes this junior worth waiting for? For what reason did Senior arrange all this? And 1,000 years have passed, the heavens and earth shifting, dynasty replacing dynasty. Is Senior truly not afraid of waiting for the wrong person? Wang Chong asked. Everything the Origin Immortal Lord had said to Wang Chong had been too unreal. Waiting 1,000 years for a person who had not even been born yet was simply too absurd, even if it involved a mythical figure like the Origin Immortal Lord. The future contained far too many variables and was simply impossible to predict. No matter what the Origin Immortal Lord foresaw or calculated, this was still too unbelievable. "Heh!" The Origin Immortal Lord suddenly smiled. "You doubt yourself?" "Yes." Wang Chong firmly nodded. "Everything in the world has its own destiny. Plant in the spring, grow in the summer, reap during the autumn, and store during the winter. These are not speculations, but laws. A single falling leaf can portend the coming of autumn, and a single ladle of clear water can tell if a river is turbid or pure. What you speak of as conjecture is simply nature to me." The Origin Immortal Lord smirked at Wang Chong. Wang Chong creased his brow. Mu Zhen's descendants have finished their mission and Yuan Feng has successfully realized his promise. Each person exists for a certain purpose, and whether you believe it or not, the moment you appeared here and stood before me, the wheels of destiny began to turn. The Origin Immortal Lord nonchalantly said. Wang Chong remained silent, the fogs of confusion growing thicker and thicker in his mind. He stared into the Origin Immortal Lord's eyes, those eyes brimming with wisdom and seemingly able to pierce through space-time and see all the secrets of the world. Wang Chong was stunned, momentarily speechless. For a moment, he felt like he was nothing more than an obstinate child in front of the omniscient Origin Immortal Lord. After a long while, Wang Chong finally asked, "What was Senior waiting for?" "A person who can change destiny," the Origin Immortal Lord declared. "What destiny?" Wang Chong continued to question, his brow creasing even more. "A disaster, a crisis, a calamity that can turn everything in this world into dust. Only that person can change all of this." The Origin Immortal Lord's voice resounded like thunder in Wang Chong's mind. The word calamity caused Wang Chong's body to shudder as if he had been struck by lightning. and he stared at the origin immortal lord. Everything in the world has a beginning and an end, a rise and a fall. When that calamity comes, no one in this world will be able to escape. Although I possess supreme abilities that allowed me to glimpse this crisis in the heavens, I am powerless to stop it. Anyone who is enclosed by the great Tao, who dwells within destiny, cannot escape it and cannot change it. Thus, starting from more than 1,000 years ago, I began to wait for a person, someone outside of destiny. Only when he descends will this world have any hope. Is there a chance of ending this destructive destiny? In that era, he will be the most unique person in the world. I will give this person all the guidance I can and all the assistance I can provide so that he can complete his mission. This is my mission. The origin immortal lord stared at Wang Chong with sharp eyes, his meaning clear. The origin immortal lord was certain beyond doubt that Wang Chong was that person. Bang! Wang Chong's body did not move, but his mind was reeling, great waves raging within. Destiny. A person outside destiny. An indescribable feeling welled up within Wang Chong, but he quickly suppressed it. This junior is a fool. What is this destiny? Wang Chong cautiously probed, but there was no answer from the origin immortal lord. He profoundly glanced at Wang Chong, and before Wang Chong could react, a white finger extended and thrust at Wang Chong's forehead. Boom! As the origin immortal lord's finger pressed down, Wang Chong's mind was drawn into another world. The resplendent hall and the origin immortal lord were gone, replaced by intense flames. Wretched screams that made Wang Chong's heart shudder filled his ears. In the flames, Wang Chong saw an old woman carrying a small child looking up at the sky in despair as she dropped to her knees. As the old woman collapsed, the world spun and shifted once more. Wang Chong now saw an immense continent that was entirely awash in fire. The Central Plains. Wang Chong's body trembled in recognition. Crack! Boom! The blackened continent suddenly split in half, plumes of dust and dark smoke rising into the sky. Wang Chong could only watch as the continent crumbled away. The flames turned from blood red to pitch black. Deep within the flames, Wang Chong heard the neighing of horses and saw countless black, demonic figures with chilling eyes. They stared at Wang Chong from a distance, their eyes suffused with the desire to destroy. Buzz! These scenes merged with the darkest and most painful of Wang Chong's memories, and his heart began to thump in fear while his body turned ice cold. The destruction of the world, the appearance of the otherworldly invaders, those blurry and inhuman figures were something that he would never forget no matter how many times he was reborn, and the sight of the burned and collapsing world would forever be branded into his mind. Buzz! At this moment, Wang Chong's body erupted with an irrepressible killing intent and pain. So you do know. All the illusions vanished as the origin immortal lord spoke once more. The origin immortal lord gazed at Wang Chong's disheveled hair, trembling shoulders, and crimson eyes, and he sighed. In the past, all the origin immortal lord had were the speculations and conjectures from his divinations, but from Wang Chong's reaction, he was now certain. Wang Chong said nothing, but lowered his head, his chest heaving as he loudly inhaled and exhaled. He appeared to be caught in the worst nightmare of all, and tears had begun to pour from his eyes. How could he forget? How could he possibly forget? He thought that he had learned to be indifferent, to hide things deep down, but when those memories re-emerged, he felt a pain that cut to his bones and made his soul tremble. What's going on? How do you know this? Wang Chong hoarsely cried out. What you have seen was my vision from more than 1,000 years ago when I was observing the stars one night. Cultures come and go, and one dynasty replaces another. This is human history and has never changed. But this time will be different. There will be no replacement, no continuation. No other culture will appear on this continent, and even the earth itself will crumble to nothing, destroyed. This will be the final calamity. The origin immortal lord's voice seemed to come from far away and was tinged with indescribable bleakness. For a moment, even the light around him seemed to twist. I used every method at my disposal but still failed to find a way to resolve this danger. I continued to pry into the secrets of the heavens, which caused my soul to wither. At the final moment, I glimpsed a ray of hope. I saw that after 1,000 years, a human would be born. His destiny would be different from anyone else's. He was not within the 5 elements nor without, had no origin or destination. I could not gather any information about him through my divinations. All I was sure about was that one day, 1,000 years from then, he would pull out a sword and lead all the humans of this world in fighting for that one last sliver of hope. Thus, starting from that moment, I began to travel the world, inspecting every hill and mountain. After 30 years, I finally found that sword. I then established the Origin Immortal sect and had Yuan Feng construct the Origin Immortal cave deep underground, where I placed that sword. The Origin Immortal sword. Wang Chong suddenly thought of the sword he was holding, and the realization left him stunned. The Origin Immortal Lord had said that he had been waiting for him all this time, but Wang Chong had never imagined that he would have even established the Origin Immortal sect, the underground palace, and even found the Origin Immortal sword. All of this existed in preparation for his arrival. This was simply too unbelievable. Wang Chong found it impossible to calm down. The mysteries of destiny had me wait more than 1,000 years, but in the end, I truly did manage to meet you. Now, I can finally give you that object. The Origin Immortal Lord gave a long sigh of relief. Wang Chong's heart thumped and he raised his head in shock. Object? What object? As numerous thoughts flew through Wang Chong's mind, the Origin Immortal Lord exploded with golden light, the almost tangible energy of the subtle realm gathering at the tip of his finger. Soon after, a tiny golden seed the size of a fingernail but brighter than the sun had gathered at the tip of the Origin Immortal Lord's finger. If one looked carefully, one could see that this seed had several strange patterns on its surface. These patterns had a life of their own, crawling across the surface of the seed like waves. Wang Chong's eyes flew open. Though there was nothing too impressive about the seed's appearance, Wang Chong could sense boundless power within it. This was only a small portion of its power, but it was enough to leave Wang Chong stupefied. This is an extremely important world seed, a seed that I have expended all my life's efforts on and have guarded for more than 1,000 years. From the moment I realized that an unprecedented disaster was lurking beneath the surface of this calm world, I thought of every method to find a way to save the world. In the end, I managed to condense this seed. This seed is the world's sole hope. This seed is still incomplete. My attempts to glimpse the secrets of the heavens expended too much of my essence, blood, and soul for me to complete this seed. I can only leave that task to you. You have things that I do not, so perhaps you can complete what I could not. The Origin Immortal Lord slowly offered the golden seed to Wang Chong. Wang Chong glanced at the Origin Immortal Lord and saw an unprecedented solemnity on his face. It was obvious that this seed occupied a position of paramount importance in the Origin Immortal Lord's mind. Sensing the weight of this seed, Wang Chong also turned solemn. Senior, in that danger you saw, just how much hope does the Central Plains have of surviving? Wang Chong did not immediately take the Origin Immortal Lord's seed. The hope of the Central Plains does not rest on me, but on you. No one can be sure of the future. All I can do is struggle with all my strength, the Origin Immortal Lord sternly said, his eyes brightly shining. Wang Chong fell silent, a thoughtful look in his eyes. After a long while, he extended his hand and took the golden seed. Buzz! He immediately felt an icy sensation at his fingertips like he had been stabbed with a needle. But a moment later, Wang Chong realized that this had been no illusion. The golden seed really had stabbed his finger, extracting and absorbing a drop of blood. The golden seed immediately became immaterial, transforming into a streak of light that vanished into Wang Chong's body. This! Wang Chong's face froze in shock. The golden seed had seemed to completely vanish for a moment, but he soon felt a strange sensation. In a flash of light, the golden seed appeared in his mind, where it began to slowly turn. Before Wang Chong could react, he felt a tide of information coming from the golden seed. This is the Origin Immortal Art. Wang Chong was startled when he realized what was contained in this information. This was a difficult and abstruse mantra, the origin immortal art that he and the demonic Emperor Old Man had so desperately sought. Even though Wang Chong and his master had expended a great deal of energy to overcome the first-generation successor and Bagushidu, they had still not obtained the origin immortal art. He had never imagined that this was how he would obtain the world's #1 art. Wang Chong felt the blood rush to his head in excitement. This mantra was complete, even including the method for the Transmigration heaven. With this #1 art, Wang Chong could solve the flaw of the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art once and for all. Notice: an unknown object has been discovered in user's body. Inspecting. The familiar voice of the Stone of Destiny rang out in Wang Chong's mind. An unknown energy has been discovered. This energy is related to user's mission. Notice: user has unexpectedly received an important object. This object is an unknown variable that could lead to an alteration in the world's progress and user's ultimate mission. Special event. User's rewards and penalties unknown. Analyzing. Initial analysis. Seed. Unknown object. User has been rewarded with 300,000 points of destiny energy. Notice: the final judgment has not been determined. User could possibly suffer a massive penalty, resulting in a large deduction of destiny energy. Notice: because user has triggered a special event, the Stone of Destiny has begun to unlock a special ability. Time to unlock. Unknown. A string of messages resounded in Wang Chong's mind. How could this be? Wang Chong was stunned. This was the first time something like this had ever happened, the first time the Stone of Destiny had not been able to determine what an object was. Moreover, this seed had also been able to trigger a new ability of the Stone of Destiny. But at the same time, the time until this ability was available to him was unknown. At this moment, the Origin Immortal Lord spoke, his voice now rather tired. The Origin Immortal art inside the seed can resolve the problems with your body. As for the seed itself, it will be the last hope for this world. I hope that it can assist you in saving the world from its destiny of destruction. This is all I can do to help you. The Origin Immortal Lord looked at Wang Chong, entrusting all his hopes with a single glance. Many thanks, Senior. Wang Chong deeply bowed to the Origin Immortal Lord. His harvest from this journey to the northwest had gone far beyond his expectations. As for the Origin Immortal Lord's hopes, this had always been what Wang Chong intended to do, and he would have done it even without the Origin Immortal Lord's request. Disasters are lined with blessings, and blessings conceal disasters. This seed is extremely important, and while it can provide you certain benefits, it will also bring disadvantages. Countless people desired this seed in the past, and though I managed to defeat them and push them back, the matter was far from settled. Remember, you cannot let anyone know that you have obtained this seed, not even those closest to you, the Origin Immortal Lord sternly warned. Buzz. Wang Chong's mind trembled and his face paled. The Origin Immortal Lord had clearly conveyed that the golden seed was also a great burden. However, Wang Chong was soon able to get a grip on his emotions. Senior, be at ease. This junior understands. No matter what the consequences are, this junior can bear the burden. This junior will also never allow this seed to fall into the hands of those who harbor ill intentions. An innocent man hiding jade in his walls could still bring disaster down on his head. Wang Chong was well aware of the principle behind this saying. But regardless of what sort of danger this seed brought, the evaluation of it by the Stone of Destiny alone meant that Wang Chong could not refuse it. Moreover, Wang Chong had already been through many dangerous events, and any crown that was worth wearing was certain to be heavy. As long as this seed could assist him against the calamity, Wang Chong could not let it go. The Origin Immortal Lord almost imperceptibly nodded. My mission is now complete, but your trials have only just begun. I cannot see your future, and to see you here is already my limit. Everything past this point about you is bursting with endless variables and chaos. I can only vaguely sense that in your life, you will encounter 3 mortal crises. Senior. Wang Chong's heart thumped as he suddenly raised his head, a solemn look in his eyes. The Origin Immortal Lord was a master of divination and could predict the future. while Wang Chong only knew of the dangers the world faced because he had been reborn. This was an ability that only the gods could possess. If the Origin Immortal Lord had predicted that he would face 3 crises in his life, then it was probably true, and Wang Chong did not dare to be careless. I will take care of the first crisis for you, but when I'm gone, you will have to rely on yourself. Starting from now, you must remember every word I speak. The Origin Immortal Lord's voice was faint and profound, like it was penetrating through the depths of space-time to resound in Wang Chong's ear. On the 3rd lunar eclipse, you will encounter the greatest trial in your entire life and lose that which is most precious to you. You will also sense the greatest isolation. Remember, when the time comes, no matter what the situation is, you must endure, and watch out for a person dressed in red. Buzz. Wang Chong's mind was shaken, but the Origin Immortal Lord was already continuing. As for the last danger, it will come when light and shadow intersect. When that time comes, open up this silk bag that I give you. This will be the last thing I can help you with. There was a flash of light in front of Wang Chong, and then a silk bag from the spring and autumn era appeared, carrying the symbol of a black Xian bird. Many thanks, Senior. Wang Chong lowered his head and respectfully took the silk bag. The Origin Immortal Lord was a mythical figure who had lived for 1,000 years and could see the secrets of the heavens. Ordinary people could go their entire lives without encountering such a being. To have him divine the secrets of the heavens was a unique opportunity that others didn't even have a chance to beg for. Wang Chong did not dare to take his instructions lightly. In addition, be careful of those men in black wearing masks. They will be your greatest obstacle, the Origin Immortal Lord said. Bang! Wang Chong shivered in shock, a completely different expression on his face as he raised his head. Senior knows those men in black? Wang Chong's mind was reeling. Those mysterious men in black had troubled him for a very long time, and he knew neither their origins nor their goals. But these people were determined to chase him down. Even the Origin Immortal Palace, hidden deep underground, contained their traces. Moreover, from what he had seen, the men in black were intricately connected to the Origin Immortal lineage. If there was one person who could answer his questions, it was the Master of Divination who had lived for more than 1,000 years, the Origin Immortal Lord. The Origin Immortal Lord had always given off an unfathomable and transcendent aura, as if nothing in the world could ever perturb him. But when Wang Chong mentioned the men in black, he saw a complicated flicker of emotion in his eyes that he had never seen before. They really did have some sort of connection. Wang Chong's heart thumped, and the Origin Immortal Lord finally exposed a corner of the iceberg that was the men in black. And they should never have existed in this world. The Origin Immortal Lord's words set off an earthquake in Wang Chong's mind, and his eyes flew open. Senior, you? The Origin Immortal Lord seemed to have guessed what Wang Chong was asking and revealed the stunning truth. Your guess is correct. And they come from the same origin. At the very beginning, we were comrades. Bang! Wang Chong could not suppress the tremors in his body nor the disbelief on his face. That most absurd conjecture had finally been verified. Wang Chong had scarcely imagined that the transcendent legend of the martial arts world had actually been a former comrade of the men in black who doggedly pursued him. How could that be? Wang Chong struggled to control his emotions. This was truly too surprising. If not for the fact that the Origin Immortal lineage and the men in black were so hostile to each other, the men in black even killing many of the Origin Immortal lineage, Wang Chong would have just up and left. Just who are they? And also, why do those masked men want to chase me down? What do they want? Senior says that you both come from the same origin, so why are they here? It can't be for only the Origin Immortal art, right? Wang Chong questioned, doing his best to suppress his shock. Wang Chong had far too many questions to ask, and he hoped to obtain their answers from the Origin Immortal Lord. I should be telling you everything, but you are simply too weak. Knowing more might only hurt you to no benefit and will also produce countless variables in the future. I can only tell you that they have existed since far before recorded history, and the establishment of every new dynasty has their shadow behind it. What you might have to deal with in the future is not just the coming calamity, but those enemies hidden in the shadows. Protect the seed I have given you. In the future, it will be far more useful than you might imagine. Wang Chong was deeply dissatisfied by the Origin Immortal Lord's recalcitrance. He had finally found someone who could answer his questions, so how could he just let the matter go? After a few moments of silence, Wang Chong took out the black beast statue from his bosom. If Senior is not willing to say, then this Junior will not force things. But this Junior has one more question. What is that beast emblem on the Origin Immortal formation? What is its connection to that calamity? The Origin Immortal Lord showed no reaction when Wang Chong took out the statue, but when Wang Chong asked what its connection to the calamity was, his body trembled in shock. Wang Chong could clearly see a sliver of stupefaction in the Origin Immortal Lord's eyes. Wang Chong himself was stunned beyond compare. The Black Beast emblem was one of the 7 key symbols that had appeared on the Doomsday altar, one of the core pieces that had eventually led to the death of the world. While the Origin Immortal Lord could remain silent about the other questions, Wang Chong needed an answer for this one. Bang! Just when the Origin Immortal Lord was about to open his mouth and tell Wang Chong about the apocalyptic symbol, BZZZZZ, the earth began to shake and then an immense wave of psychic energy surged into the palace. Wang Chong himself possessed immense psychic energy that had reached the tangible level, but this psychic energy was completely his equal. In certain aspects, it was tougher and more powerful and older. Haha! Origin Immortal Lord, you really are still alive. A cruel and domineering voice, bursting with aggression and force, resounded through the hall. Rumble! As Wang Chong stared in shock, the entire palace began to shake, even the dimension that it resided in. Wang Chong glanced at the Origin Immortal Lord and immediately saw that the Origin Immortal Lord had paled. What should come has come. The Origin Immortal Lord turned grim. What is going on here? What's happened? Is it an earthquake? Everyone, be careful. Ah! Outside, the appearance of that immense energy had caused the entire core area to quake, and the various martial artists were uneasily looking at their surroundings with shock on their faces. This place had a very complicated geography. Such a large shift in the earth had a chance of burying them all in this place. While many martial artists wondered if this was an earthquake, Vice Lord Xie Guangting frowned. He looked toward the Origin Immortal Palace shrouded in the fog. Yuanyi, something is wrong. For some reason, after Wang Chong entered the Origin Immortal Palace, he had completely vanished, and no one even saw the gate of the palace open. No one knew what had happened or what Wang Chong had encountered, but it was true that this earthquake had only happened after Wang Chong went inside. You also sensed it? Amidst the chaos, Song Yuanyi's voice resounded in Xie Guangting's mind. Do you remember the words of that leader of the 3 masked men? Buzz. Xie Guangting paled at these words. In the earlier battle, Wang Chong had used the inconceivable power of lightning to slay the 3 powerful leaders of the men in black in a single blow. But a few of the martial artists clearly recalled the dying words of the Tiger Immortal. This was far from over. Yuanyi, what do you mean? Xie Guangting looked at Song Yuanyi, his expression turning solemn. I hope I'm wrong, but pass on my order. Tell everyone to get ready. Song Yuanyi had left a sentence unspoken. If the situation really was what he imagined it to be, this newcomer would be someone even more powerful and frightening than the Tiger Immortal. If this was the case, then they didn't even have a chance to escape. Something's going on, the Bone Devil ancestor suddenly said at almost the same time. His brow rose and he seemed anxious and uneasy. I have a bad feeling. We might be in trouble. Ancestor, is that brat inside causing trouble? Wei Chongting, Song Yuan's once pursuer, suddenly asked from his place behind the Bone Devil ancestor. No, it doesn't seem to be him. The myriad ghost ancestor spoke up, his brow furrowing. The demonic emperor old man, Wuxiang village chief, and lone silence ancestor also raised their eyebrows in concern. Something's not right. This shaking isn't normal. Is Chong'er okay? The Wuxiang village chief looked worriedly at the dazzling Origin Immortal Palace in the fog. Let's wait and see. If Chong'er still doesn't come out, we'll try and find a way to force our way in, the demonic emperor old man sternly said. Meanwhile, within the Origin Immortal Palace, the air had become tense. This development had come too abruptly, and the information divulged in that mysterious voice's words to the Origin Immortal Lord had left Wang Chong stunned. "Senior, who is that person? What's going on here?" Wang Chong sternly said. He currently had an extremely ill foreboding. That moment has finally come. After what seemed like a second and like countless epochs, the Origin Immortal Lord finally spoke. "Do you remember what I said to you before? You will encounter 3 mortal crises in your life. And the first one is now here." Boom! Wang Chong's eyes flew open. He naturally remembered the Origin Immortal Lord's words from just before, but it was too fast, too abrupt. "Time is limited. Starting from now, remember every word I say. The statue you hold is my insignia and also an extremely important object for this world. Those men in black you mentioned before have come for it. I built these caves and secluded myself here partially to wait for you, but also to resist them and protect that insignia. More than 1,000 years have passed, and though I tried my best to hide, they still managed to find me." Wang Chong stood up and sternly said, "What is this thing? With Senior's abilities, why can't you destroy it? It's not that simple. That insignia was created using the most unique materials, and nothing in this world can destroy it. Not even me. In addition, I also can't just give it to someone else, including you. Remember, once you get out of here, if you can incubate the seed I gave you, then you also have to find a way to collect 7 insignias like these. This will be extremely important for the coming calamity." In the tense air, the Origin Immortal Lord's words only made Wang Chong more uneasy. The Origin Immortal Lord was the strongest person Wang Chong had ever encountered, but based on his tone, he was not sure if he could stop this new foe. Wang Chong grimaced. The Origin Immortal Lord seemed to want to tell Wang Chong more, but he soon grimaced and looked up, his eyes piercing through the roof of the palace. "No time. He's here." His eyes penetrated through earth and space and reached the surface. At the same time, far above the Irvane, past rocks and dirt 16,000 meters above, whoosh! A gale swept over a vacant piece of land, and a moment later, a man radiating heaven-sundering energy appeared at the entrance to the Origin Immortal Treasury. This man was entirely engulfed in golden light, and all light within 3 feet distorted around him. Nothing could be seen of him except a pair of chilling eyes. Humph! This mysterious figure coldly snorted as he stared at this bottomless hole that made even birds incapable of flight. Boom! The man shot forward in an explosion of energy and instantly vanished from the surface. Deep underground, the patrolling dragon beasts who were seemingly restricted from entering the core area suddenly shivered. They looked in the direction of the pit and began to howl and roar. A moment later, in a flash of golden light, that golden figure appeared in the underground caves. The sight of this golden figure had these ancient beasts with steely and energy-resistant bodies suddenly trembling in fear, and there was terror in their eyes. A powerful dragon beast even lowered its head and body to the ground, shivering all the while. These beasts were not as intelligent as humans, but they possessed formidable bestial instinct. These fearless and vicious beasts now felt a fear that came from the depths of their soul. Awoo! Suddenly, one of the 4 dragon beasts seemed to shake off the fear of death and lunged at the human. Foul beast! The man merely turned his chilling eyes on the beast and cursed. A moment later, the dragon beast seemed to be dealt a heavy blow. It was blown back several dozen feet and dropped to the ground, dead. A single curse had ended the life of a dragon beast. In another flash of light, the man appeared next to the other 3 dragon beasts. "Follow me." The man extended a finger and lightly caressed the dragon beasts, who became like little dogs and began to follow the man into the depths of the caves. Boom! The man stomped forward, releasing an explosion, and then he was gone. Behind him, the 3 dragon beasts howled and followed. Buzz! Only a few seconds had passed, upon which an enormous and terrifying energy began to press down on the core region of the Origin Immortal Treasury, as heavy as a mountain. Bang! Before anyone could react, a golden silk boot stepped out of the dark passage and began to stride into the air. Fierce gales began to rip through the core region, and the lanterns that still flickered on the stone bridge began to wildly sway. Song Yuani, Xie Guangting, the Blackine ancestor, the Bone Devil ancestor, and all the other martial artists sensed a terrifying pressure. It was like that golden boot was stepping not on the air, but on their shoulders. What's going on? I can't move? A young martial artist stammered, his eyes flying open and cold sweat pouring from his forehead. He suddenly felt a fear that came from the depths of his soul, like a mouse meeting a cat or a toad meeting a snake. This young expert was a rising star of the martial arts world who had been through many life-or-death battles, but he had never been so frightened before. No matter how powerful a foe was, as long as they were still restricted to the domain of martial arts, he could still fight with them. But without any sort of attack, he had lost control over his body and it felt like his soul had been imprisoned. This sensation was even more frightening than death. Careful! Righteous Alliance Lord Song Yuani paled as he sensed this frightening pressure. Bzzz. Tough and almost tangible stellar energy surged out of his body, rapidly covering the Righteous Alliance disciples and repelling this pressure. Xie Guangting, the Blackine ancestor, the Myriad Ghost ancestor, the Bone Devil ancestor, the Lone Silence ancestor, and even the demonic Emperor Old Man and the Wuxiang village chief began to release their stellar energies to protect themselves. The Bone Devil ancestor even roared, black energy seething off his body, as he turned into a savage and frightening Bone Devil. The massive eyes of that skeleton gleamed with ghostly fire as they stared at that golden silk boot emerging from the passage. What's going on? Who is this person? The Bone Devil ancestor mentally roared as he unconsciously took a few steps backward. As a leader of the evil path known throughout the martial arts world, the Bone Devil ancestor had encountered countless powerful foes, but none of them had ever forced him to this level. He hadn't even seen the full form of this foe, but he had already been forced to assume his strongest battle stance as the Bone Devil. If the Bone Devil ancestor weren't experiencing it right now, he would have never dared to believe that someone could force him into this state. Even more concerning to the Bone Devil ancestor was that even though he was in his strongest form and had so many top-class experts of the Five Ancestor Alliance at his side, including his peers the Blackine ancestor and Myriad Ghost ancestor, he felt no less fear and unease. Watch out! There's... The Lone Silence ancestor was about to warn the demonic Emperor Old Man and Wuxiang village chief about something when he suddenly paused midway. That terrifying existence in the passage suddenly exploded with power, and the pressure exerting itself on everyone present became so great that they could hardly breathe. How could someone so frightening exist? The Lone Silence ancestor felt unprecedented shock. He had endured more shocks in this one trip to the northwest than the rest of his life added up together. Strange factions and opponents were appearing one after another. The 6 walking corpses in the underground palace had all been extremely strong, but those 3 masked men had been even stronger. As for the powerful being in the passage, the Lone Silence ancestor sensed that they were even stronger than the Tiger Immortal. Suddenly, boom! With a heaven-quaking impact, another golden silk boot emerged from the passage and stomped onto the air. A moment later, the golden figure finally emerged from the passage. Those cold and tyrannical eyes, the erect posture, and the endless waves of destructive energy rolling off his body stunned everyone present. In the face of this dreadful strength, everyone else felt like they were like nothing but ants. Everyone here was an accomplished expert of the martial arts world, able to crush stones and lift cauldrons with a wave of their arms and feet. But compared to this figure, they were fireflies trying to vie with the moon. The gap between them could not be calculated with numbers. Bang! This man was a god, and he was slowly striding upon the air toward them. The void seemed like solid ground to his feet, and the pressure he exuded was only getting stronger and stronger. Not good! Light flashed within the core region as the martial artists pushed the stellar energies in their bodies to the absolute limit, their faces madly shifting through emotions. Whoosh! A martial artist suddenly vomited blood, the first to break under the pressure. Like a deflated leather bag, he crumpled to the ground and rapidly began to cool. A few moments later, several dozen martial artists followed him in being crushed to death by the pressure. Song Yuanyi and his righteous alliance were the closest to the passage, so they suffered the greatest pressure. Crack. A soft crackling sound like the frying of beans came from the eternal spring stellar energy around Song Yuanyi. In the martial arts world, Song Yuanyi's stellar energy was known as the best in defense, and its immense vitality and recovery ability allowed Song Yuanyi to heal extremely quickly. Up until now, nobody had ever been able to break through Song Yuanyi's stellar energy. But a few moments later, boom! Song Yuanyi's stellar energy seemed to have reached its limit and exploded. Plush! Song Yuanyi paled as he vomited blood. Alliance Lord! The righteous alliance experts all paled. Just when it seemed like all of them were about to endure the same frightening pressure, an arm reached out and grabbed Song Yuanyi. At the same time, Xikong Yuanjia, Ouyang Changheng, and the other experts managed to gather their power together to just barely weather this pressure. Withdraw. We're no match for him. Xie Guangting's voice resounded in everyone's ears. This man's strength was simply too frightening. Even though Xie Guangting and his universe-sundering art specialized in piercing through the stellar energy of his foes, he could not muster any thought of resistance. This person was far more powerful than they could ever imagine, leaving even the likes of Song Yuanyi and Xie Guangting in the dust. All the righteous alliance experts began to back away in panic. But at this moment, the man cared little for the people around him. From the moment he emerged from the passage, his aloof eyes were locked onto the dazzling Origin Immortal Palace in the distance. Humph! You found quite the nice place. The man profoundly stared and gave a cold chuckle, and then he turned his eyes to the three nearby corpses of the Goat Immortal, Deer Immortal, and Tiger Immortal. Wang Chong had borrowed the power of the Origin Immortal Sword to kill these three in one strike. The Tiger Immortal had run the farthest, but he had ultimately died not far from the passage. Buzz! The man suddenly unleashed wispy golden light from his body, which began to morph and shift into various mysterious symbols. A moment later, this energy began to shift so rapidly that the symbols blurred together. What is he doing? This sight made everyone shiver with ill foreboding, but nobody knew what he was doing. All they could make out was blurry human-shaped figures moving within the energy. It's those men in black. He's making time go in reverse to see what happened here. The demonic Emperor Old Man's voice came from the back of the crowd. His eyes were flashing and there was shock in his voice. The demonic Emperor Old Man was the only person present who could enter the world of energy and observe its changes. This was also why he was the only person who could understand what the man was doing. Those countless blurry figures were a reenactment of the battle that had taken place here. Through some absurd method, this terrifying existence was replaying the events of this place, but at such speeds that bystanders couldn't see. The demonic Emperor Old Man was a grandmaster of martial arts, but not even he had ever seen a technique like this. As the demonic Emperor Old Man was peering at him through the world of energy, the Golden Man seemed to sense something and shot the demonic Emperor Old Man a chilling glare. Rumble! The demonic Emperor Old Man's mind was slammed, and his face turned pale and he staggered backward. Ah! Cries of alarm came from his side. The Lone Silence Ancestor and Wuxiang village chief were well aware of how strong the demonic Emperor Old Man was. As the former number one of the evil path, the demonic Emperor Old Man was so infamous that all martial artists would still pale at the mere mention of his name. Whether it came to martial arts or psychic energy, he had cultivated them to an incomparably sturdy level. But a single glare had been enough to heavily injure the demonic Emperor Old Man's mind and destabilize his stellar energy. This level of power was simply absurd. The Wuxiang village chief and the others were instantly filled with dread toward this mysterious newcomer. Humph! Not knowing your own strength, the man sneered. After pushing the demonic Emperor Old Man out of the world of energy, he turned his attention back to the images of reverse time before him. Is this man a god or a human? The martial artists were all stunned. This man had seemingly done nothing except exist, but he had already managed to heavily injure martial arts titans like Song Yuanyi and the demonic Emperor Old Man. Their hearts were brimming with fear, and they felt like fish on the cutting board. A few seconds later, the man finished looking through the playback. He had seen how Wang Chong had used the Origin Immortal Sword to kill the goat, deer, and tiger immortals. A pile of useless trash. You couldn't even accomplish a minor task like this. The images in front of the golden man dispersed, the wisps of energy returning into his body like birds returning to a forest. Anger flashed in his eyes as he stared at the three lifeless bodies. But seeing as you were able to find this old scoundrel's hiding place, you have some use. This being the case, I'll give you one more chance. The man thrust a palm forward. The air shrieked with the wailing of ghosts. As the martial artists looked on in shock, black smoke began to pour out of the heads of the three deceased immortals, accompanied by wretched screams. If one looked carefully, one would see people struggling within the three columns of smoke, their bodies very similar to those of the three immortals. He was extracting their souls. Everyone instantly backed away in shock, staring at the golden man like he was the world's most wicked devil. Souls. This was a forbidden ground for martial artists, a forbidden ground for all humans. Not even the strongest martial artist could extract a person's soul. Not only that, the goat, deer, and tiger immortals had been dead for some time, but the golden man had still been able to extract their souls from their bodies. This could no longer be explained as an extension of martial arts. Moreover, if a person's soul was imprisoned, they would not be able to reincarnate. Even evil path leaders like the Myriad Ghost Ancestor, Bone Devil Ancestor, and Blackeen Ancestor couldn't help but pale and back away in fear. They were regarded as part of the evil path by the rest of the martial arts world and could kill without blinking an eye. Their hands were stained with the blood of countless people. But in front of this man, they were like kittens before a lion. The gap between the two sides was immeasurably vast. The godlike being suspended in the air cared little about the reactions of those around him, treating them as if they didn't exist. As his fingers clenched together, the screams became deafening. The souls extracted from the bodies of the three immortals were forcefully squeezed together. Ah! A martial artist yelped in fright and fell back onto the ground, cold sweat drenching his body. Not even in the most dangerous and frightening situations in his life had he been more shocked than by what he had witnessed in the last few seconds. Demon! Demon! This can't be a human! The wide eyes of the numerous martial artists clearly displayed their panic and fear. A few moments later, the golden man had finished his modifications. Seething with black smoke, a new soul had appeared in his hand, a jailed beast that roared in his hands but was powerless to escape his grip. The man's cold eyes never once looked at the martial artists around him. He slowly scanned the ground and quickly settled on the body of the bamboo hat leader nearby. Nothing but a lowly warrior. This is an enormous favor for you. The man's voice resounded through the air as he vanished and then reappeared above the bamboo hat leader's body. He opened his right hand, allowing the new soul containing the traits of the three immortals to vanish into the corpse of the bamboo hat leader. Clack, clack. Bones cracked and groaned as the bamboo hat leader's body began to tremble and swell. It was like some supremely savage beast was hidden within his body. Rah! A heaven-shaking roar came from the mouth of the bamboo hat leader. And then, as everyone else watched in shock, his body stood back up. His body had initially been very large and muscular, but under the stimulation of the golden man, it had swelled to a height of 2.7 meters. His torso and limbs were also rapidly thickening, and he stood above the crowd like a crane amongst chickens, a true giant. Many people didn't even come up to half his height. Thud! Thud! This stalwart giant soon turned its gaze to the crowd. Everyone could see his eyes, blood-red eyes brimming with chaos and madness, a desire for blood and carnage. This was nothing more than a human-shaped beast. This is the last chance this one will give you. Kill all the ants here. Every single one. I hope that you will not disappoint me, the golden man said. These words were not for the martial artists, but for the bamboo hat leader standing before him. It was as if speaking to any of the martial artists down below would harm his prestige. Roar! The bamboo hat leader responded with a savage roar. Boom! While everyone was still panicking and trying to figure out what was going on, the air exploded. In a flash of light, the golden man vanished like a ghost. He left behind the bamboo hat leader, who shook the earth as he once more used his most powerful ability, the yellow scarf warrior. This time, however, the yellow scarf warrior was far taller and more terrifying. Boom! An immense fist hurtled through the air and screams almost instantly began to ring out. Meanwhile, a figure streaked through the white dimension that Wang Chong had previously traversed, crossing through it almost instantly and reaching the Origin Immortal Palace at its heart. Boom! In another flash of light, a foot stomped into the Origin Immortal Palace. The entire palace shivered, and it felt like the entire world was shivering with it. We finally meet again. After so many years, everyone thought you were dead. To think that you still had one last breath. Were you waiting for me to come and collect your corpse? The icy voice resounded through the palace. The Golden Man ignored Wang Chong and focused solely on the cross-legged Origin Immortal Lord. There's no time. The voice of the Origin Immortal Lord resounded in Wang Chong's mind, deeply sighing. He had still wanted to tell Wang Chong a few more things, but his foe had come far more quickly than he had expected. True Lord Yellow Dragon, I kept hidden for so many years. I didn't think that you would still manage to find me. The Origin Immortal Lord sighed as he turned his eyes to the Golden Man. When the Origin Immortal Lord finished speaking, Wang Chong watched the golden light shrouding the figure disperse, revealing the face beneath. This was an elder of around 60 or 70 years, but his complexion was ruddy and his forehead smooth. He didn't seem like someone in his old age at all. He held his hands behind his back and wore a yellow dragon robe, the savage dragons so lifelike that they seemed ready to leap from the cloth. Anyone who used dragon designs in the Central Plains would be guilty of immense disrespect and would probably have their entire clan slaughtered. But this man clearly did not care. And if one looked carefully, one would realize that this dragon robe was completely different from those worn by the Son of Heaven or the Imperial Princes. Those dragons were of extraordinarily ancient design, completely different from the ones Wang Chong knew. But what drew his attention the most was not his flagrant wearing of a dragon robe, but his beard. This was a golden beard that glossily shone, taking the form of two long and thin streams of hair that hung down from the side of his lips. They appeared like two dragon whiskers, like this man really was a yellow dragon. While this man had a strange appearance, Wang Chong did not dare to look down on him or jeer at him. Powerful. Extremely powerful. The moment this man appeared, Wang Chong felt his blood freeze, alarm bells ringing from every single part of his body. He would die. This was what Wang Chong's instinct and intuition communicated to him in bold letters. Wang Chong had never encountered such a powerful foe, and he was someone who had killed the goat, deer, and tiger immortals. But in the face of this mysterious true Lord Yellow Dragon, Wang Chong felt like his life was hanging by a thread. He couldn't even muster up the will to fight, let alone actually fight. Every cell in his body told him that this was not someone he could defeat. Wang Chong was not unfamiliar with this feeling, but this instinctive response would only happen when the chasm between him and his foe was particularly immense. There was no question that true Lord Yellow Dragon had far exceeded his level of strength and simply wasn't someone he could fight. Humph! A cold snort resounded in Wang Chong's ears. Raising his head, Wang Chong could clearly see a vicious light in true Lord Yellow Dragon's eyes. True Lord Yellow Dragon ceased the exchanging of pleasantries and instantly struck. Boom! A golden light howled through the world, instantly engulfing the Origin Immortal Lord and Wang Chong next to him. But even before true Lord Yellow Dragon had struck, the Origin Immortal Lord had extended his right hand and placed a thin finger on Wang Chong's shoulder. Be careful. This battle isn't something you can take part in. This finger is the last thing I can help you with. The Origin Immortal Lord's voice resounded like pealing thunder in Wang Chong's mind, and a moment later, violent energy surged into Wang Chong's body. Senior. Wang Chong only managed to say the single word before the world began to spin around him. Wang Chong sensed that this immense energy was teleporting him out of the Origin Immortal Palace. At the same time, rumble. Two terrifying energies that transcended all living beings of the world fiercely clashed within the Origin Immortal Palace. With a grandiose explosion, the exquisitely built Origin Immortal Palace together with its golden light barrier exploded. Those martial artists who were still trying to break through the golden barrier were instantly obliterated. A moment later, a golden light tens of thousands of times more dazzling than the sun expanded outward with an unstoppable momentum. The fog that engulfed the core region was instantly vaporized into nothingness by this frightening power. Crack! Crack! The sturdy stone bridge rapidly collapsed and crumbled into countless bits of stone that plummeted into the abyss along with the lanterns lining it. Together with them were those two heavy chains, nearly 1,000 meters in length. In the blink of an eye, the ground upon which various martial artists were standing was destroyed by the golden light. Those martial artists standing at the very edge didn't even have time to groan or react before they dropped down into the abyss. Ah! Save me! What is going on here? Careful! I don't want to die! Fierce explosions were threatening to collapse the only place the martial artists could stand. Run! Paling, the martial artists began to run toward the passage. But a moment later, in a flash of light, a golden seal covered in ancient symbols stood in their way, knocking back the fleeing martial artists. Some of the martial artists had their bones shattered, stellar energy destroyed, and lives ended by the powerful repulsive force in the seal. Other martial artists might have avoided this fate, but the destructive energy of the seal still hurtled into their bodies and began to burn away at their meridians like a wildfire. These martial artists were some of the best in the martial arts world, but in front of the seal they were nothing more than lambs to the slaughter. It's that bastard! The martial artists immediately realized what was going on. There was no doubt that the mysterious golden man was the one responsible for laying down the seal blocking the passage. He was far too powerful, so powerful that none of the many experts had even noticed how he had laid down this seal. "This bastard wants us all to die!" a martial artist cried out in despair. But this was far from their only worry. Right before them was a massive giant 50 to 60 meters tall. A demon god descended to the earth, domineering and violent. He was charging at the crowd, a gigantic black fist hurtling toward the martial artists. In an explosive blast, countless martial artists were sent flying. The strength unleashed by the bamboo hat leader remolded by True Lord Yellow Dragon was far beyond their imagination. Boom! The giant yellow scarf warrior had just finished one punch when his other fist came slamming down, seething with black flames. Aya! In a chorus of screams, tensome martial artists were thrown about like ragdolls. There was already very little area to stand, and the yellow scarf warrior's frenzied attacks immediately sent everyone sliding down. Careful! Wang Chong's master, the demonic emperor old man, was also in this descending crowd. All of this had come too abruptly for him to react. When the place one was standing was destroyed, even an expert like the demonic emperor old man found it hard to protect himself, and he tumbled downward, where the immense pull of the abyss was drawing everyone to the bottom. Boom! The demonic emperor old man's body rumbled with stellar energy as he pushed his myriad spirit sea art to its limit. Streams of stellar energy gathered around him, which the demonic emperor old man guided downward in the hopes that it could slow his descent. Thump! A millstone-sized rock rolled down from above. The demonic emperor old man stomped onto this rock, and while the rock hastened its descent, the demonic emperor old man clearly decelerated. Even in this dangerous situation, the demonic emperor old man still remained calm and composed. Bang! In an eruption of stellar energy, the demonic emperor old man waved his sleeve. This stellar energy hurtled upward to the Wuxiang village chief above him, slowing his descent and buying him some time to catch his breath. With this assistance, the Wuxiang village chief was able to circulate his stellar energy and step onto a rock, temporarily saving him from the fate of a rapid descent into the abyss. Song Yuanyi, Xie Guangting, the Blackine ancestor, the myriad ghost ancestor, and all the others used all the techniques at their disposal to deal with this sudden crisis. Buzz! As everyone else was plummeting downward, another figure appeared in the core area in a flash of light. This is... How? The sight of his surroundings, the falling rocks, and the immense pull coming from the abyss greatly alarmed Wang Chong. He only knew that something had happened outside, but he had never imagined that things were this bad. The scene in the core area could only be described as complete destruction. But there was no time to think, as the pull from the abyss soon brought Wang Chong plummeting straight down with the others. But Wang Chong was able to react quickly. Rumble. Innumerable torrents of stellar energy surged into his surroundings. The great yin-yang heaven creation art. Wang Chong used this art without hesitation. There was nothing to hold on to in the emptiness. But the great yin-yang heaven creation art was still able to have his descent speed. It's the young patriarch. Wang Chong had not noticed that a figure nearly 100 feet down below had noticed him and paled. Black spider. The origin immortal chief whistled. Swish. A silver-white spider thread shot out from several hundred meters above. The spider thread crossed through the entire area. This spider thread was as thin as a hair and so sharp that not even superb weapons could block it. As this spider thread shot past them, the martial artists paled. But the origin immortal chief appeared to not care. Stomping on a stone, she lunged forward like a civet cat. As she jumped, she took out a black silk glove which she put on her hand. She caught hold of the thread and was able to climb the thread to reach the stone wall to her right. Bang! She then thrust out a palm and shattered the rock, after which she extracted a small bronze-colored piece of metal with the origin immortal symbol upon it and slammed it inside. Cack-lack! The clunking and turning of mechanisms came from the rock wall, getting louder and louder until it seemed like a thunderstorm was taking place right in the middle of the abyss. A massive mechanism had begun to turn. Thud, thud, thud. The inconceivable took place. The rock walls shattered, and massive bronze slabs began to protrude from the rock. 1 slab, 2 slabs, 3 slabs, from top to bottom, left to right, layer upon layer of bronze slabs in various shapes and sizes shot out from the rock walls, immediately transforming the core region. From a distance, these numerous bronze slabs created a grandiose sight within the abyss. As everyone was plummeting, these terraced bronze slabs became a critical lifeline. What's going on here? Forget it. Just hold on. A martial artist extended a long ape-like limb and grabbed onto a protruding bronze slab. Boom! A large rock came down from above and struck the bronze slab, causing it to shudder and the martial artist to break out in a cold sweat. But he still counted himself lucky. The other martial artists also began to use their various techniques, landing on the bronze slabs like so many raindrops. The origin immortal chief was paying little attention to what was happening below her. Her bright eyes were aimed upward, focused on the fingernail-sized form of Wang Chong. Boom! Once Wang Chong had descended several hundred meters, the origin immortal chief thrust out her palm and sent a stream of stellar energy into the palm-sized, compass-shaped piece she had placed into the wall. There was a large boom as a massive bronze plank shot out of the rock and appeared beneath Wang Chong. This sudden development left Wang Chong stunned. "Young patriarch, hurry!" The origin immortal chief worriedly called out. Wang Chong immediately exerted an immense pull, grabbing onto the bronze plank and then using it to reach the wall. Boom! The bronze plank slammed into the rock wall on the other side in a great explosion of dust. At the final moment, however, Wang Chong had managed to fly up into the air and get above the impact site. Rumble! But before there was any time to catch his breath, a thunderous explosion came from above. Wang Chong looked up in alarm. 3,000 to 4,000 meters above everyone else, a blazing sun floated. Within this sun, 2 dreadful energies were embroiled in fierce combat, sending howling gusts of wind down below. All the martial artists looked up in fear at the enormous golden ball of light. Origin immortal lord, hand that object over and I can still spare your life. A cold and aloof voice emerged from the blazing sun, shocking everyone to their core.